Okay, we're continuing with our room with a view walkthrough here. Remember in the last video we created our database, and so that created this word entity, this word data access object, and this room database object. So we have those three classes created here. Our next thing is create this word repository. So that's step 9 here. Now we don't necessarily need a repository. We could just in our view model access this database directly. But common practice is to put a repository in here, and repositories, that term is often used to denote a class that kind of collects all the database responsibilities and stuff in one spot, so that if you want to swap out a database with a different type of database, you know that all the database interactions stop here. And that's what they're kind of showing here, is that we have this repository. Right now it's accessing a DAO, but maybe in the future we'll want to store this on the web, on a network, and so maybe we'll use a Firebase or Firestore, one of the cloud database systems that's non-SQL. So then we can swap out this DAO with a Firestore interface, and our repository do this. So then our code would just have to be this basically green box would go away, but everything above it would stay the same, because our repository offers some isolation from the rest of the code to the database. So that's what the repository is really kind of doing, is setting that up. So again, we're going to build a word repository class, because we're going, our database is a word thing and we're creating a repository. So again, new class, word repository. Here, set that up. And again, I'm just going to take this basic code and put it in here and walk through it. So we're just going to take this code here, copy that, and replace this class, empty class, with that. So we got to bring in our some of our imports here. Okay, so let's talk about what this is doing. So again, what is this trying to do? The repository is trying to be connection between our view model and our database. And so the question is, what do we need to do? What do we need to get from the database? Well, if you remember, our database can provide us a list of words. Here we can get all the words. We can also delete all the words, or we could insert a word. So those are probably our three things, the same kind of objects that are in the DAO here. Select, get alphabetized words, delete all, and insert. Those are probably the same sort of activities we're going to want in our word repository for now. So let's look at our word repository code. So the first thing we have to do is do some create some stuff. We're going to want to interface with the database, and that is not with the database class. You'd think we might create that, but with the DAO, because we're actually going to this goes like through the database. The database is going to be kind of a class that gives us access to the DAO. So the word repository is going to create our word DAO. So we need a word DAO object, and again, M word DAO. And then again, we're going to have to keep track to this list of words. So we just create a list of these word entities, call it all words, M all words. And again, this is going to be live data, because again, we want to want this has to be live data so that we can send that information or update the main activity here. So since it's live data, we're going to keep live data all the way down here. So we need a live data list of words. So those are our two member variables here. And then this is our constructor. This needs access to the application, kind of the context of this. The database needs access, so we have to make sure that this has the application context, because we have to send that to the database. So the database needs access to the context that we're kind of working in. And then we're just creating, once we have the database here, so this is calling the get database. That's the one method we created in there, and that is giving us our database. And this kind of works like as a factory to give us a DAO. That's the only thing we use this for. So once we have that, we use it, basically say, give us a word DAO object, and we save that. Now once we have the word DAO object, we can call the get alphabetized words to get all the words. So now we've initialized our initial list. So when we do our constructor, we'll get access to the database, set that up, and also get the initial list of words from that. Then the other things, sometimes we might want to re-get the list of words if we think it's been updated or changed, or we need to get them again, so we can call that. here. And again, all that is doing is calling m all words. Now, right now it's not updating the words here. So I think my thought is that we'll see that this should be calling this here. And then returning all the words. But I think we might be okay because here later on we insert words to the database. So we're going to insert words to our database and set that up. But we'll limit that for now. And because they're not doing it, I think this might have something to do with the live data. I'm not that familiar with how live data works. I'm wondering if, since we're updating this live data along the way, if this will automatically get updated. But in my mind, we need to update this manually here before we return it because we may have inserted words to this. And again, this is our insert command. We can use our DAO to call insert and send a word to it. So we get a word as a parameter. Now, whenever you update the database, we need to do that in a special class. So now if we're just reading things in the database, like we're calling get alphabetized words or something like that, we don't have to do that. But when we're writing to the database, we have to put this in a special execute string here and run this special non-UI string or whatever. So again, that's one thing to watch there. Frequently I forget this, and so I often write this code, and so I will not have like this or this. Oops, I don't have that whole line there. And I'll just have this, insert word, call insert word there. And this seems like it would work fine, but again, it will not actually update the database. This has to be run in a special thread, database executor thread, so that it is assigned one of the threads that's created to update the database here. Okay, so that's our repository class here. So we've got that created. Now, next thing we want to do is create our live view model here. Let's see. Make sure we got everything. Yep. So create our live view model. So again, remember the view model is something that sits outside of the user interface. We have our activity here, and we have more than one activity here. But if we rotate or whatever, we have to recreate that activity. We'll destroy that activity and recreate it. And so we create this view model to hold our data so that it's not lost whenever the activity, the user interface, is deleted and destroyed and recreated here. So this is what we're going to do is create a view model here, call it word view model. So and again, this is just another class here. Go up here, new Java class, view model here. That's set up. And then this is our view model here that we're going to create. So I'm just going to walk, this time I'm just going to copy and paste parts of this over here, I guess, a little different. So this is going to extend the Android view model. And so we have to set that up. Now it's going to need a constructor here that sets up. So it's going to want the parent class requires us to have a constructor. So that's this constructor here. Now this is actually this constructor here that is here. The blank one here actually just calls the parent constructor and passes the application information into the parent constructor. So that's required here. Okay, and then what is this view model going to do? So again, this view model is going to be holding stuff from our repository, and again, it's basically a list of words here. So we're going to keep track of those words. It also needs to access this repository, so it'll need a repository variable. So that's what these things are. These are the list of words and the repository variable that will hold our repository. So we're going to declare those here, do our import here. Live data import, and again, right now it's comparing that's not initialized, so we better initialize it, and we're going to do that in this constructor here. So again, the way we set up our words, well, let's do our repository first. Let's do them both. We'll copy these two over And these are just our two initializations that we're doing in the constructor. First, we're going to initialize the repository by doing new word repository. We're going to, again, it needs this application context. The database needs the application context, so everything that feeds down to the database is going to be passing this application variable here. So this needs the application context, so we're going to have to use it here to pass it here and here to pass it here. Down here. And in fact, the main activity when we create the view model is going to pass the activity application context, because the main activity is what actually has that. So I'm not going to talk too much about it, just so you know that that's being passed around here. So this we're getting in when we call our constructor. We've got this application context and we're sending it down to our repository. Once we have our repository, we're just going to call get all words to get an initial list of all the words. And initialize this. So now our error has gone away because we're doing our initialization in our constructor here. Okay, what else are we going to want to do here for this? So again, what does the view model want to do? Again, the main activity might want to tell the view model to add a word to the database, or we may update the list of words. So let's look at that. So we're going to have two methods here: insert word and get all words. So we're just going to add those in. I'm going to spread these out a little bit so there's a little maybe easier to read here and more standard format. Okay, so get all words is just going to be a class we can call, a method we can call, and again we have this list of words and it's going to return that list of words. And remember, this is a live data list of words here. And then insert is just going to insert a word. If we're given a word, we'll do an insert for that. Okay, so that's our view model that's set up. So now we've created this repository and we've created this view model here, and both of them hold a list of words that they pass up to the kind of the parent or the previous class for this. Now it has a warning here. Again, one thing why we're doing this view model is we don't want to, it's going to be in a separate thread as the main activity. So again, we don't want to keep any pointers or anything back to this main activity, because this main activity or fragment might go away and be destroyed and recreated here. So in the old way, we used to often, from the main activity, have some sort of controller here, pass the activity pointer to the controller so the controller can call activity again. But what happened would be that if this was destroyed and recreated, that pointer or that variable would no longer be accurate here. So that's why one of the reasons we have this view model. So just giving you a warning is that don't keep pointers back to the main activity in here. So. Okay, now we're going to actually do the layout here. I'm going to do that in the next stuff. This kind of wraps up the main heart of this stuff. The next stuff talks about more of the user interface, where we do a recycle view, which we haven't covered too much in this class. We do a new activity, which I haven't covered in this class, but we'll set this up and get it running. So, but this is the heart of the room with the view now. We have this all set up here. Well, we will talk about setting up this observer to observe the live data in the next section.